reports. Matt Canada's back. Surprised? Okay. How you feeling?
Not surprised.
Okay. Hit him with the Nate Diaz. I'm not surprised, mother. I'm sorry.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I've been saying it this whole offseason thus far. I'd be fine with Matt Canada coming back. I've been saying it, I don't know at what point, whenever we were in the midst of the season.
Yeah, it was
probably like towards the middle of that second half stretch.
Yeah.
I'm like, at this point, I think it was after the Falcons game.
Yeah, when we started,
we were really running the ball.
It was what 3-1 in that like span. I think that's definitely
I said, you know what? At this point, we still got like 4 or 5 games left, but I think Canada earned himself a chance to return, and then it just kept getting better and better. Mm-hmm. So why not have Matt Canada back?
I would also say that we both also added too. Because it wasn't just at that point that we were like, you know what, man, definitely bring him back. We also put the caveat of this has to continue down the stretch. Those final 3 to 4 games that we were talking about, we knew it was going to be Vegas, Baltimore, Cleveland. And I cannot remember who else was in there in between that time frame. It was one other team. Panthers. That was the other one. And we were saying to ourselves, like, okay, you can discredit some of the victories, or if you want to minimize some of it when it's the Falcons. Okay, we don't agree with it, but we'll talk about it. All right, if you wanted to put that versus the oh my god, who's the other team? Because it was the Panthers as well. I feel like those 2 games specifically were around the time people were still kind of questioning, like, hey, was it really good, or was it just you beating up on a weaker opponent or a lesser team? Even though going into those matchups, none of us felt as if it was just drastic difference in these teams. We felt that we were getting hot, and we felt that roster-wise, we could compete.
Getting hot at
they
that
absolutely
time
were. Carolina was definitely winning.
Did
absolutely,
they beat the Seahawks
yes,
the week
they
before?
did. Yes, and that was why at that time they were 1 game behind the Buccaneers to win the division.
Yeah,
and they kept winning and matching the Bucs when we faced them, and we were the team that beat them. You know, so that was also going on. So even with that, though, we also said that down the stretch, like as long as if they could continue on with the offense progressing, with the offense looking good, along with them winning. And we even went as far as to say if they made the playoffs, we thought it was a surefire thing that he'll be returning. But we said if they
did everything.
Yeah, but we said if they win and do that they should make it. And like you just said, they literally did every single thing to put them in position to make the playoffs that they could control. Obviously, we know the Jets had to take care of business. They did not. But when you look at the actual facts of what we were asking for, what all of us were rightfully asking for and rightfully hollering about. Like, when we talk about sustaining drives, when you talk about getting first downs, when you talk about scoring points, those are all valid things. Those are all things that you should demand as an offensive coordinator. But at the same time, we also had to understand the context of the time of when we were demanding those things, and was that conducive in that setting in the first half of the season?
Well, not even that. It was just everything else was a mess too. We could have used more from Mitch. Receivers were dropping balls. The O-line was terrible. Najee was banged up.
And I think the thing that Coach Tomlin and the staff are doing right now in terms of Omar Khan, Mr. Rooney and stuff like that, they understood that context, and they understood that it wouldn't be fair to just grade Canada in the first half of that year on that type of standard, so to speak, because it was going to be a lot of fluidity, a lot of moving pieces going on with that, as we saw. But the one thing that did hold true, and which was why we really started to back this mindset that, hey, if he could turn this part of the season around, they'll probably bring him back, was because of this stuff right here, the patience of it. And now to actually see it turning around, and now we're really getting a chance to see something be planted, and let's see what it can grow into. Now, this isn't a 36-month thing. Nah, this ain't even a 24-month thing. We talking about 12 months. That's what you extended, essentially. You know, you got 1 year left on your deal. That holds true to the Steelers model in terms of not firing coaches unless they have to, but it also gives him the proper time to really show if he is capable of being an NFL offensive coordinator without prematurely making that statement. Now we're going to get a chance to get the full sample size. Now we're going to get a chance to really understand if he's capable or not. And
because now you got a guy you got good rapport with.
Absolutely.
At quarterback.
Every excuse is gone. Like, all the things that were set up for him to be obstacles last year, those things aren't in there anymore. You don't have to deal with, how do I manage Mitch Mason Kinney? You don't have to deal with, okay, is my offense going to be geared exclusively to Mitch, or do I need to start gearing it exclusively towards Kenny, or are we going to be flipping back and forth because of the injuries that were going on between those two guys early on, right? All of those things at play, like you talked about, even figuring out who the wide receivers are going to be.
When's the O-line going to start gelling?
Like, all of that type of stuff. But during that
first year without Big Ben, too.
Yeah, all of that stuff, and without Kevin Colbert, who, when you talk about roster creation and personnel decisions, that's a big thing, man. But to me, man, it was just one of those things where I just think that this is going to allow him the proper time to really evaluate him. And I think for Coach Tomlin, because what we also said, and it holds truth, whether we're talking first-round draft picks or coaching hires, teams aren't in a hurry to admit when they are wrong. They're going to give guys ample opportunities, right? Guys that they invest in, whether it's like we talk about a first-round pick who might be up and down, they'll give them opportunities. This is, in terms of Coach Tomlin, this is one of his real first hires on the offense side of the ball. We talked about that, I think it was the other day as well, in terms of him being able to say, hey, this is the guy that I want. This is the guy that I want to hire. Not he's already on the roster. Not, hey, I'm bringing this guy over here. You just deal with it. None of that. Not, hey, this is the predecessor to him. You got to just deal with it and like it regardless if you think he's good or not. Nah, that wasn't the case. So with that, you also have to understand that Coach Tomlin is also going to give this guy the realest opportunity to prove if he can or cannot do this thing as well. And I think that that's another reason why we're getting this much patience from Coach Tomlin with him. But I do think it does make sense, though.
100%. And Kenny Pickett just did a podcast episode with Cam Hayward yesterday. It's pretty good.
Shout out to the boys, man. Shout out to Cam and his podcast, and shout out to Kenny, man. Let's go.
It was good. And they talked about Canada. They talked about the offense, and Kenny only said positive things. He talked about his relationship with Canada, dating back to his days being recruited going to Pitt, and just how him and Canada worked together throughout the season. But one of the big things I took away, so yeah, Kenny, it seems like he likes Canada, and it's a good fit for him. He even said, I'm excited to work with him this offseason. This was before the report even came out today. The one thing I took away, though, that was most interesting, he was talking about, I don't know if it was directly in relation to Tomlin, but he brought up how Tomlin would game plan stuff throughout the season. And he would talk to Pickett like, this is kind of the script. This is how I want the games to go. So why I found that interesting is, listen, maybe Tomlin has a little bit more say in the offense and how it's just structured than we think, as opposed to just putting everything on Canada. But you know how we do with Canada. It's everything that's bad's on Canada, not the good stuff. But my point is this, like, maybe Tomlin's like, hey, I want us to run the ball. I want us to chew the clock. Let's focus on not turning the ball over. Let's play defense. This is, I think, how we get out of this game.
And knowing Coach Tomlin, that's not far off. If that's what Kenny is saying, I definitely. He
just said it briefly as like a one-off comment, but
honestly,
it got me thinking.
I could understand that though, because
having a rookie quarterback like Kenny in there, like it makes sense.
And you have to think, Coach Tomlin being a defensive-minded coach, how do us defenders think? Think about when me and you talk. You're looking for points. I'm over here like, bro, we can just hold this team. We don't have to score 30 if I'm holding this team to 10. We don't have to score 30 if I'm holding this team to 16. Like, that's how I look, and I can understand if Coach Tomlin did have that mentality with this unit, especially in year one of a major transition. I do feel like that's the one thing that we continue to overlook, because it's like, we got a first-round draft pick at quarterback, and we feel like because of the history of first-round draft picks, you just got to let these guys go out here, throw it as much as you want, see what you have, sink or swim, and things like that. But I don't think that was the recipe for success this year. And I think that the proof was in the way that we operated this year. When we did try to have Kenny throwing it, or even, because we really didn't have Mitch throwing it as frequently, but with Kenny early on, it was just like it was a little bit premature. But as he continued to evolve and develop, you could see where they would shift it a little bit more and more. And I think that that is on par with Coach Tomlin's mindset, because he doesn't want to turn the ball over. He understands the significance of protecting that ball.
Why he sounded pissed after that Ravens game when Mitch threw those 3 picks.
Because you're getting out that stadium without it.
Yeah.
And that's the that's the recipe. That's how he feels to go in these games and win them. And it makes sense because the track record has been proven, whether it's been the issue with Kenny or in the past with some of his other teams. He believes in winning by stopping you, not by outscoring you. But he also understands you have to not turn that ball over as well. And that is just a method right now. But I think we will continue to get this offense evolving more and more with more time, with more trust, and with more repetition. And it looks like with all the reports that have been coming out, and shout out to Jerry Dulac as well, that we're going to start getting at least those building blocks, those big monumental stepping stone time frames, in terms of that happening right now, or at least look like we're going to get that. So it'd be exciting to see, what the return on that investment is when the season starts, man.
And what goes hand in hand with that is Kenny even talked about that too. It's like you're not satisfied with where we are right now or where we were. He said, I think one of the things to look forward to in year 2 is more explosive plays and just to continue to build on what we've been doing. But again, it goes back to if Kenny and Canada got this good relationship and they're going back and forth, I just got an inkling it's going to work out, and we probably will start seeing more explosive plays.
Yeah.
Because people are probably complaining about, like, oh, don't we want to score more points? Don't we want to score more points? Yeah, we do, but I want to win games. And I feel like the formula for winning games in the second half of this season with the rookie quarterback and Pickett was how we did it. It wasn't trying to take all those chances. Yeah. But now Pickett's a year under his belt. We got all these dudes, like all these young guys on offense.
That's what I'm saying.
1 year under the belt or 2 years under their belt, whether you're talking about Pickens, Najee, Freiermuth, the whole O-line. Like, okay, let's
everybody
continue to grow and build.
Contract. I mean,
and it's not even saying we're not. I didn't even think it was like we weren't capable of doing that, because we did drop 30 against the Bengals, 28 against the Browns week 18. Could have easily been 35. It's just, man, I think it's a good idea to see how this thing develops, because we had a good thing going, and I just don't see how there's any reason why we're not going to be capable of more explosive plays. Because even when Pickett came in early on, that's what he was going for.
Yeah, he was off the break.
Right off the gate.
Yeah,
I think his first pass was the one to Claypool, and he fell over himself and hit off his hands, and Jets got the pick. But it was like, hey, can we start fine-tuning this a little bit, because we're getting a TJ Watt back. Our defense is going to be a little bit better. Let's run the ball. There was just so many things at play as to why our offense got better, and Matt Canada was part of it. Kenny Pickett getting better was part of it. The players just as a whole playing better was part of it. So why rock the boat? It was a good. It's a fine decision.